West Virginia is in the hunt, in the mix for a very talented guard out of the transfer portal. Mountaineer Paul and I are back with another episode, and we're going to talk about it right after this word from our sponsor.
This episode of Hoops from the Hills is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time.
With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for.
Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you.
What is going on, Mountaineer Hoops fans, college hoops fans, Big 12 hoops fans? Welcome in to another episode of Hoops from the Hills. And we are going to talk today about a guard that West Virginia has, in my opinion, a pretty legit chance to land out of the transfer portal. Some sources of Paul's really has said, hey, be on the lookout for this guy. Not sure where we stand with him, how far down the road we are, but Paul and I really like him, so we wanted to do a show on him. His name, Couz Glover. He's a 5'11" guard, currently at BYU, but he hasn't played a game yet at BYU. It's an interesting story. Before we get into the article, Paul, I want to get your thoughts on Couz Glover.
Well, man, I wish I could take credit for it, but you nailed it when you said Jawan Staten. As far as driving to the basket, he is a bulldog. He's got a little of that Joe Toussaint in him. He's better at driving to the rim than Toussaint was, though. And he's got a really great floater at the mid-range area, right between the block and the free throw line, that just right in the middle there. A really great floater that he likes to pull out every now and then, what they call a teardrop. He's really good with it. He can shoot it off the dribble really, really well. It's one of my favorite things about him. And he makes really difficult shots a lot. And he uses either side of the basket when he drives, and he's able to up and under with either hand. I love it. He is a really, really great scorer. Somebody that's needed, similar to Raekwon Battle, a guy that played in 51 games at Florida through 2 years, didn't play a lot. He actually, funnily, played against West Virginia when he was at Florida. And this is another guy, considering what Acook, that has played against West Virginia, that had an impact on the game, although minimal. He only scored 2 points, as he was still trying to find his way as a basketball player. He transfers, goes to BYU. Money ain't right, which we're about to get into with this article. Decides, not for me. We recruited him before he went to BYU. So I think there is a connection here. We'll see how it plays out. But to size up this guy's game, he scores at all 3 levels, mid-range, inside, driving to the basket, and obviously he can shoot it. But he's not your guy, your stereotypical guy like the guy I always bring up. He's not a Pittsnoggle where you just can't kick it out to him in the pocket and he just ready to pull that thing. He is a off-the-dribble three-point shooter, which you don't find very often.
Yeah. And he actually shot it, we were talking off air about it. His game reminding us of Jawan Staten. Jawan Staten, this guy I think has the opportunity, or if he's not already, to be a better outside shooter than Jawan Staten was. Jawan Staten had that great mid-range game. He was deadly from about that 15-foot, about the free throw line in. He was deadly from there, and he could drop a 3 at times. He wasn't, he wasn't a terrible shooter, but it wasn't what he was known for. And I think this guy's in that same mold, but might be a little better shooter even than what Staten was. Let's get into the article to kind of talk about the backstory on this young man and why West Virginia may be looking at him. But here it says, and this is from vanquishthefoe.com. It's SB Nation's site that covers BYU. It says sources. And this is from August the 5th. So it's, about a week old. New. Yeah. BYU loses an expected contributor for next season's team as BYU point guard Couz Glover to enter transfer portal. After signing with BYU back in May, Couz Glover is expected to re-enter the transfer portal 3 months later, sources told me. Since he is a grad transfer, Quez can enter the portal anytime without sitting out a season. And again, we won't have to worry about a waiver. Jeff Goodman was the first to report the news. Quez removed BYU basketball from his IG bio Saturday morning. And there's Jeff Goodman's tweet about it right there in the article. With the departure of Quez, BYU now has 2 vacant scholarships and will be fully turning to Dallin Hall to man the point guard position. Dallin is coming off a freshman season where he started 21 of 34 games and averaged 7.3 points and 3 assists on 37% shooting from 3. Spencer Johnson and UC Irvine transfer Dawson Baker will likely assume some point guard duties as well. Without Quez, BYU's guard line looks like Dallin Hall, Spencer Johnson, Dawson Baker, Trevin Nell, Richie Saunders, and Trey Stewart. Quez was one of BYU's 3 transfer additions and was expected to compete with Dallin Hall for the starting point guard spot. Glover was one of the top mid-major guards the last couple seasons at Samford. Glover averaged 19.2 points and 4.4 assists on 47% shooting as a junior in the 21-22 season, which earned him all SoCon first-team honors. He partially tore his meniscus as a senior this past year in late November, which caused him to miss nearly 2 months in the middle of the season. But he still played 19 games and averaged 14.7 points on 48% shooting. Glover received second-team All-SoCon honors despite missing the first month of conference play. He played his first 2 seasons at Florida, where he averaged 4.4 points as a freshman and 2.5 points as a sophomore in 51. So why did Quez leave? Sources tell me that NIL was the main reason. And with other Power 6 schools potentially willing to take in a guard at this point, Quez will likely look for a spot where he can, in his mind, get guaranteed NIL money. The loss of Quez no doubt hurts BYU. The glass half full side is that Dallin Hall is the clear-cut starting point guard and can go through the ups and downs of Big 12 play, but Quez was a one-year player that would no doubt have helped BYU. I'll stop there. I don't need to read the whole article. But so there, Paul was right about the NIL piece. Looks like he felt like he could get more money elsewhere, or at least more guaranteed money elsewhere through name, image, and likeness opportunities. So Paul, what are your thoughts as you read that article?
It's a common theme, isn't it? We've experienced it. Trey Mitchell. Once these guys get whiff of what the market is for them, and I think the NCAA is going to have to put in some protocols to prevent this from happening, because all players are going to do is, even if they transfer somewhere like BYU, he can say it's about the money. I've been told that he was getting paid pretty good. But what it is these guys know if they re-enter the market late, August, maybe even, which there's a cutoff date coming up here in a couple days for that. You can go in at any time, but you can't play this season after a certain point. Right. Is my point. And so what these guys do is they cut it as close as they can to that date, and then the market goes crazy looking for a guy that can contribute and overpays. And so I think the NCAA is going to have to do something about that, because it's going to happen every year, and teams aren't able to recover in time.
Right.
It's going to be hard for BYU to replace him, if at all. They may just go with what they got, or something. What do you do? It's not fair,
I agree.
In the West Virginia's case, the Bob Huggins situation opened that window. Had he not left, I don't know that Trey Mitchell doesn't leave anyway, guys. He was a grad transfer either way, right? So he could have left anyway, and I'm sure teams would have came calling. He would have eventually found out what his worth was. I'm curious to know how that would have played out. We get blindsided once he hears he's worth $1 million.
Well, I actually read
insanity.
I actually read it. I don't remember where I read it at. It may have been on the 24/7 site. I can't remember, but there was actually some concern behind the scenes that he might leave anyway. So you're dead on it right there. And because he was a grad transfer, and they knew that other schools were interested in him.
Right.
And then
there were conversations happening, I guarantee.
Once the Huggins thing happened, it pushed him, and it basically made his decision easier for him at that point. Is what it did.
Right.
So yeah,
he's not worth $1 million.
Yeah, and $1 million, man. That's holy cow. Anyway, but in this case, we don't like how the system is set up, but as West Virginia fans, the way, as long as we're doing it the legal way. We want to try to benefit from it as much as we can. Obviously, we want our team to benefit from it as much as we can. And in this case, if West Virginia is able to go out and get Quez Glover out of the portal, I think it'd be a great addition. It gives us a for sure second guard. Now, here's the only concern I have, Paul, and this is trying to find the negative in the situation. I guess I like to do that, right? But
Yeah,
who's going to be I mean, is he starting over Kirk Risa?
probably not.
So is he your backup point guard at that point?
I'm assuming, yeah. And listening to that BYU article there, sounds like he was already going to be relegated to that role anyway and seemed to be
Right.
okay with it. He
Yeah.
went there.
Yeah.
So I think for him, it sounds like, listen, if you pay him enough, he'll probably sit the bench. I don't mean that. I'm sure the kid has a fire and wants to play.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, NIL's really just not come around for this kid. He's got a 1 year window, and he's not going to be an NBA player most likely to maximize his his money and potential in the market. So you got to do what you got to do, and you got to do what's best for you. I don't agree with these kids coming into the fray late, although it's their right to do so. It's hard on the university, on the players they play with,
Right.
on the fans of those teams. But I also think it's fair for them to do that as far as for their own value and everything. I understand why they're doing it. If I was in this situation, I would probably do it too. I just don't like the impact it has on the university team players.
Agreed.
Fans.
Agreed. I totally agree with you. I don't like the way it's set up now. I think they need to tighten it up some. Even grad transfers, in my opinion, need to be able to. There needs to be a cutoff date. Even for grad
Before so
transfers,
late in the game,
in my
yeah.
opinion, yeah. I know a lot of people may not like that. But,
April.
if they've graduated, they ought to be able to do what they want. But man, it just makes it. And now with it would be different if NIL wasn't in play here. But with NIL now as part of the equation,
Right.
it just it makes it pure chaos, man. And like you said, some of
I,
these teams can't recover.
I think the cutoff date for this season is the 22nd. I believe is the date I've heard.
Gotcha.
So think about that. This has been like a week ago. That means BYU has roughly 3 weeks to get somebody else in place. If I'm wrong about that date, I apologize.
Yeah.
But I think I'm right. So tell me how you're going to recruit, fund, and get a player in 3 weeks that is capable of doing what he's doing, or at least something like he was doing.
Mhm.
You gotta vet and figure out who you need, what you need, who it is. Then you got to schedule a visit for him. And these things can be expedited and done quickly, but it's not always the case, especially when there's so many other suitors out there for kids. Then you got to convince a donor to pay for it or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always easy to do these things in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Just not.
Yeah. But yeah, this young man would definitely be a good add to the team. He's not we mentioned in a previous video that I think when they need to bring in a shooter to replace Omar, another shooter. This kid doesn't necessarily fit that mold. He's more of a slasher, but I think he's also too good to pass on if you have a chance to get him. That's just my opinion.
There's no doubt. Yeah, we need another guard anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and Paul Mulcahy, according to my sources, is staying in Washington.
He is okay.
At least as of 2 days ago, that was the latest word.
Gotcha.
And this is a plugged-in source, so I'm assuming he's probably going to stay. So obviously he would be the best player in the portal by a long mile were he available, but unfortunately, it doesn't sound like he's in the cards anymore.
Okay.
Washington made something right.
Probably so. And thank you for that update, by the way. Well, guys, we ask that you haven't subscribed to us here at Hoops from the Hills yet, please do so. Please help us get to our next goal of 2,000 subscribers here on the channel. We appreciate you guys have really helped this channel grow much faster than we ever anticipated, and we can't thank you enough for that. But we still have a long way to go. We want to keep growing, keep getting bigger, keep bringing out more and hopefully better content for you guys. So please subscribe. It really helps. Another thing that helps is comments. Let us know in the comment section what you think about this young man, Quez Glover. Do you think West Virginia should pursue him in the portal? Do you think we need a player of his type and his playing style on this roster? And I encourage you, after you get finished watching this video, to go watch this young man's highlight tape and tell us what you think. come back and tell us what you think in the comments. And then don't forget to hit the like button, guys. If you liked what we had to say here today, you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. Paul, any last words before we say adios?
Cue country roads, baby.
That's right, baby. Cue them country roads. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and we look forward to the next one. And we're out.